the Ishanni Sampradaya. A Sampradaya is a lineage of spiritual teachings stemming from an enlightened teacher, such as the Sankara Sampradaya, Ramanuja Sampradaya, Madhvacharya Sampradaya, or according to the form of God they particularly worship, such as the Shivite, Vishadvana, Shakta, or Janapata Sampada Das. Externally, the St. Thomas Christians were an integral part of Vedic or Aryan religion Dharma, even though they would primarily describe themselves as Ishanas. They would have met it in the sense of Sampradaya within Santa Dharma, not a separate religion. Whatever distinctive customs a Sampradaya might possess, they would all consider themselves to be fundamentally followers of Sanatana Dharma, the religion based on the Vedas and the teachings of the Vedic seers, known as rishis. And the majority of their customs and spiritual doctrines would be absolutely identical and harmonious with one another. This is the trait that most horrified and infuriated the Christians from outside when they encountered the Ishanas. The Ishanas never referred to themselves as Christians. Among themselves with other Indians, they used Ishanni in reference to themselves. After the discovery by European Christians, they began to call themselves St. Thomas Christians to make their spiritual nature comprehensible to them, and also to affirm that their form of the teaching of Jesus, Ishwa, was their heritage from the Apostle Thomas himself, and was positively to be distinguished from the Patrine, Roman Catholic, or Pauline, Eastern Orthodox, or Protestant forms of Christianity. Although they had frequently interchanged with the Eastern Christians of Persia, Syria, and Iraq, they were insistent upon their distinctions from them as well. Bar Heberus, an early Syrian Christian writer, records that when Christians from Persia visited India, the Ishanas told them, "We are disciples of St. Thomas." It was those Persians who created the phrase St. Thomas Christians and first began to use it. And that is why I'm sometimes using that affiliation now. Because there were profound ties between India and Persia, many Persians, being followers of Vedic religion, the St. Thomas Christians, Ishanas, always considered themselves brethren of the Persian Christians, who were the Chaldean tradition, which after the destruction of Christianity in Persia became centered in Iraq. Both the Persian and Iraqi Christians were condemned as heretics by the other churches of East and West, since they did not believe that Jesus Christ was God in the sense of being an incarnation of one of the Trinity. Rather, they believed that he had begun as a man just like us and had attained the status of Christ, Son of God, as could and should all Christians. The Ishanas believed this as well, and they too were called heretics by the Western Christians who persecuted them, just as modern Christians ignore the fact that reincarnation is an Orthodox Jewish belief, so they ignore that there exist two churches, one founded by the Apostle Thomas in India, and the other founded by the Apostle Theodos in Iraq, with a continuous history from the Apostolic age that do not believe in the Mediterranean doctrine of Jesus being the incarnation of the second person of the Trinity. The fact that the Ishanas did not originally use the expression Christian underscores their fundamental differences from the Mediterranean Christianity derived from the other apostles. In the last century or so, mostly as a result of pressure from the later mentioned Christians of the East for the sake of expendence, the titles of Indian Orthodox Christians and Indian Orthodox Church has become current for external use. Again, the Ishanni Sampradaya should not be equated or confused with the Christian religion as it developed in the Mediterranean world and is now embodied in the Eastern Orthodox, Roman Catholic, and Protestant churches. In modern times, to give something of idea to its character to those who know only those just mentioned churches, it also called St. Thomas Christianity. But it is not a church. Rather, it is a sampradaya, spiritual current or movement within the Vedic religion of India that is commonly, though somewhat inaccurately, called Hinduism. In other words, Ishanis are not Christians in the general accepted sense, though they are followers of Sri Isha Deva. Rather, they are followers of the Sanatana Dharma, the religion of India. Regarding this, Father Jacob Currier, teacher of theology at the Kontian Seminary in Kerala, had this to say to Christine Chalet, the author of the Malkara Orthodox Church. We should feel that we have an Indian role to play, and we should present it to the world, a specific picture of our church. We cherish so much the fact that we would build our Christian tradition on the foundations of the Sanatana Dharma. Of course, there is a foundation laid by Christ and the apostles in the long spiritual tradition of Christianity. But the theological tradition of the Indian church has to be in line with the Indian philosophical tradition, which is not only necessary, only the Hindu one, but also that of the Buddhists, the Jains, and other non-Christian traditions, which also contribute to the Indian physiological tradition. So we have to take this into consideration together with the Eastern Orthodox spirituality and theology. We want to present to the world a model of Christianity which contributes to the Indian philosophical tradition. So we take this into consideration together with the Eastern Orthodox spirituality and theology. We want to present to the world a model of Christianity that has lived for the last 20 centuries in the tradition of pluralism. But at the same time, we want to keep the central elements of Orthodox Christian spirituality and doctrine integral. When Christians adopt this attitude of Santa Dharma, which incorporates all truths, they will be able to overcome all anxiety regarding secularism and anxiety not on the part of the St. Thomas Christians, but on the part of those who simply do not understand their historical and spiritual character any more than they understood the historical and spiritual character of Isha Mahisha, the Christ of India, the spiritual heir of the Vedic rishis and Gautama Buddha, whose teachings contains quotations from the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, and the Dharmapada.